I also want to thank today's co-chair, Pia Biagetti, longtime friend and legal counsel to JDI and the host committee. Together, we have nearly reached our goal of $100,000, and we hope to surpass that figure before this morning's event concludes. Joining the JDI board has given me a whole new appreciation of the day-to-day work of the coalition. I see how JDI's expertise, leadership, and insight is called upon by our elected leaders, government officials, and the private and nonprofit sectors. For almost 47 years, the coalition has convened, supported, and trained and advocated for local programs to ensure we have the funding and the capacity to meet the diverse needs of those who experience sexual and domestic violence. Today, as we face uncertain and uncharted challenges, JDI has seized upon opportunities to strengthen a cohesive membership, opportunities to uplift issues around sexual violence, opportunities to align with and help advance the efforts that reflect its values of racial equity, social justice, and human rights. I am proud to be in this role at this time, and I invite you to stay involved and connected and be a part of this extraordinary organization. This morning, we celebrate JDI and its bold and brave staff, plus the remarkable campaign and the trio of Lieutenant Governor Polito, more advertising, and Bank of America, who made it happen. Respectfully is a creative and innovative effort to reach our youth with messages and tools about healthy relationships. We can't wait for you to hear more about it. Again, I want to say thank you for joining us this morning. And at this time, I turn over the proverbial mic to Peter.
Thank you, Deb, for helping with this event, and of course for your leadership as the chair of the board of directors of JDI. With a lot of help from colleagues at Mintz and ML Strategies, I've served happily as JDI's pro bono counsel for over a decade and get to see firsthand its indispensable, really unique work in bringing best practices to member agencies, informed advocacy to policymakers, and hope to the victims of sexual and domestic violence. All of you have helped to make all that good work possible, especially through your donations and the support of our Spring Into Action sponsors. I just want to acknowledge them quickly, but very sincerely at the diamond level: Bank of America, our platinum sponsors, Eastern Bank, Partners Healthcare, Uber, gold sponsors, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Massachusetts, Foley Hoag LLP, Mintz and ML Strategies, and Verizon, and bronze sponsors, Associated Industries of Massachusetts, EP Financial, More Advertising, People's United Bank, and Cambridge Trust Company. Your presence, even remotely, and your financial support are a welcome counterpoint to the challenges that so many nonprofits are facing this fundraising season. These are unsettling times, and the fact that we are so close to our goal is a tribute to the esteem in which devoted benefactors such as you hold JDI. And maybe because of those unsettling times, I'm respectfully going to ask you again to consider an additional gift. And perhaps you can talk to your company or to a family foundation about including JDI in their philanthropic portfolio, or simply considering other ways that you can lend your support. So thank you. And let me just add one more personal observation. We all get to see the passion with which JDI pursues its mission. But as their lawyer, I get to see every day the principles by which JDI and its staff go about their day-to-day work, the way that they support each other, the way that they empower members, the way that they stay faithful to donors like you. They do it with compassion, with fairness, and with a true spirit of shared success. An ethic that pervasive has to emanate from the top. And at the top of JDI is a true beacon. And so it's my pleasure again to thank you, and really an honor to introduce the Executive Director of JDI, Deb Robin.
I'm that person. Thank you, Peter. I'm having such a moment of pride and joy that we're doing this, that you're all with us in community, and especially during these times. So I want to thank everyone for giving a little time of your morning, having a cup of coffee. We're sorry we don't have breakfast to share with you because food is such a part of community. I'm so pleased to welcome you to our first, probably and hopefully our last virtual fundraising event. Spring into Action is JDI's signature event, and regardless of whether we're in person or on Zoom, we hope to convey the reasons that having a strong coalition and engaged membership of 57 organizations and our work to support survivors with compassion and equity, how that makes a difference. And I think you've already heard from the president of our board and our attorney. What great advocates to speak on our behalf. Doesn't get a whole lot better than that. I'm also so happy to congratulate our awesome awardees today. Feel so proud to be in partnership with all of you. And I'll just give a brief thank you to my husband, David Janey, who had this idea one day in the early fall to award all of you. Thank you very much for that idea. We believe at JDI that there is strength in numbers, and you might hear us say that a lot. And your presence today is evidence that you all share that belief. So thank you very, very much. I'm grateful to the staff who are here with us today, or who are not for various reasons. We have an awesome team. People say we're small but mighty. There's 8 of us, and we are, it's an honor to work with everyone on the JDI team every day. To our board members, also amazing board that we have. We really work in partnership with you and honor that. We have so many partners and friends on today who are supporting us, and our members. We could not do this work without the strength of our 57 member programs. Since quarantine started, we've had a weekly call with executive directors every Friday, and almost everyone shows up. It's become a regular place to be, and we have a lot of great conversations and discussions. So thank you all. I just want to say a little bit about this environment that we're in, because COVID-19 is the worst possible scenario for survivors of sexual and domestic violence. They thrive, this situation thrives on isolation, silence, and the cracks in our systems that have been there all along but are especially evident right now. And it's very sobering. We're all concerned about survivors, children, families, and others who are bearing witness to the power and control that defines sexual assault and domestic violence. And while it has been incredibly worrisome, and our work has changed overnight, it's also been more than impressive to share and watch the ways in which folks who provide services, mobilized, have reorganized their programs to being remote practically overnight. Their compassion and caring for survivors in their communities. These values still are and continue to, we continue to advocate on their behalf. And as a team, JDI also pivoted. We, this amazing staff that we all have assembled together are passionate, skilled, and committed people, and they have worked tirelessly to support our network, to work with a myriad of systems, many of whom are on this event with us today, including state agencies, funders, healthcare providers, private foundations, the public, many, many partners to ensure that survivors can have a safety net, to know that services are still available. We're all working to ensure that those survivors who are facing discrimination, barriers, disparities are not left out of the greatly needed solutions during these times, which includes things such as affordable housing, language access and equity, healing from trauma, and access to basic human rights. So I think these are the things ahead of us right now. I'm really grateful and honored that you are all joining us this morning. And again, want to thank our co-hosts, Deb Collins-Gooseby, co-chairs, and Peter Biagietti. All of you understand that the time for prevention is now. When we talk about how intense issues of sexual assault and domestic violence impact survivors, impact the public, there is no stronger call for the importance of prevention than at this moment. In fact, had we had prevention programming all along, maybe we'd even have a little less to be concerned about right now. So it feels so appropriate that we are honoring this innovative and creative campaign today, because we should all end this morning feeling a little more hopeful. Hopeful that the Respectfully campaign has reached all corners of the Commonwealth. You know, before this time, when I'd be at the airport, when I'd be on the subway, I would see posters everywhere, and I would get so excited because I know that I was a part of this campaign and so many others watching it from the very, very beginning. And so I think it's the public-private partnership of putting this amazing creative endeavor together has brought all of us a lot of inspiration, and we all need it now more than ever. So it's been a pleasure to be part of shaping the Respectfully campaign, and I appreciate the opportunities that so many of us in our membership, in the Governor's Council, other ways in which we've all been able to give input. And the creators of this campaign have been more than gracious for the amount of input they've had to receive on many occasions, because you might imagine that some of us have strong opinions about things. But I think that's made for a really stronger partnership and connection. And so, now I want to also say one other thing, that the people who have been involved in this campaign have really ranged, and you're getting to see a little bit of it, from government partners, individuals, folks in the field, but I really appreciate that the youth voice was captured in this campaign and honored, because we know that that's really about understanding how to make a campaign relevant for those who are going to be on the receiving end of it. So it's now my pleasure to introduce Jessica Crockett Murphy, who's been a youth advisor for Respectfully. Jessica, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. I'm honored to be able to talk to you all today about the amazing impact that this campaign has had on myself and my peers. I joined the youth working group about 5 months ago after seeing it posted on my Facebook page for a youth and government club, and I thought it would just be a really cool experience to check out, but I quickly realized how important the mission of this campaign really was. Being in high school myself, I have seen many relationships come and go, some seeming like they're a match made in heaven, and others making you question why they were dating at all. And I got to see those relationships come to life again in the animated advertisements produced by this campaign. Being in the youth working group, I was able to give input on the scripts and the vocals for the advertisements to make them feel raw and realistic. And they ended up feeling like a conversation I would hear in the hallway and help show how a healthy relationship or friendship should function at my age. My favorite part about working on the campaign, however, is getting to see the amazing amount of diversity and representation that exists throughout the video series. There are relationships of all kinds, with partners of all different gender identities, sexualities, races, and abilities. And coming from someone within the LGBT community, this really moved me. The campaign created accessible and easy to understand visual resources that showed that anyone, no matter the way you look or the way you love, has the right to a loving, healthy, and safe relationship. And the cartoon graphics depicted the situations in a way that did not seem too childish or too mature to understand, and struck a perfect balance that helped catch the eye and still taught about the importance of respect in a relationship. Whether the viewer of these ads are people in the relationship themselves or the parents of kids who just started dating, anyone who sees the content created by this campaign can learn a thing or two about how to have a loving and healthy relationship. I would really quickly like to thank those being awarded today. Thank you to More Advertising for helping this campaign come to life. Thank you to Bank of America for being a major corporation that proudly stands behind campaigns like this. And thank you, Lieutenant Governor Karyn Polito, for making sure that the young people in Massachusetts have the opportunity and accessibility to learn about ways to make sure that they are in a healthy relationship. And also thank you all for giving me the opportunity to speak about my time with this amazing campaign. It's impacted me in ways that I will always remember. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. And now we'll give you a sampling of what the Respectfully campaign is.
Well, we tried with the screen share. What we're going to do is put a link then in the chat box. Y'all can grab that, and I know that will be another chat coming up with the link to the Mass.gov Respectfully campaign, where you can see not only that video, but all 6 of them. And they range, and I'm sure that during the roundtable, Judy and Julia can share a little bit about why they chose the different themes that they did that were highlighted. So thank you for that. I will.
Sorry about that.
No, that's fine. It's just this is.
I was not charged. Okay, sorry. So now we're sorry that not everyone who is being honored is with us today, although we have representation. But I want to also share with you a welcome video from Lieutenant Governor Karyn Polito. As you might imagine, she's been a little busy these days, this week in particular, but I know for certain that if she could be here, she would be here with us. She shows up repeatedly, and her commitment to our work, to JDI, but most importantly to survivors is just unparalleled in this Commonwealth, and it's been a pleasure and an honor to work with her. So let's see what she has to say to us this morning.
Good morning, everyone. I'm so happy to be with you. It feels so different than what we envisioned this breakfast being, which is a beautiful occasion for us all to get together. So we're together through a Zoom process, and that's okay too, because we're together. I just want to say thank you to JDI for all the work that you do day in and day out, and especially during these challenging times. It's hard to believe that a year ago we were talking about the Respectfully campaign and launching it, and all the efforts around promoting healthy friendships and relationships, and how important that is to setting our youth up for success. And so we will continue those efforts. I just first of all want to say how humbled we are to receive this recognition. The Council to Address Sexual Assault and Domestic Violence, Bank of America, and More Advertising. We all work together, and we are very grateful to be recognized for the effort and the Respectfully campaign. We didn't do it alone. We had some great advice, especially from the youth advisors who assembled remotely throughout the process to give us their feedback about what this Respectfully campaign should look like, what the messages should be like, and what some of the resolves should be to help youth make good decisions around their friendships and address issues like drama, control, intensity, jealousy in relationships as they grow older. So I want to thank you all. I want to just thank Judy and Julia from More Advertising. You've done a great job listening and really assembling the information and creating a really great message. I want to thank Jill and the team at Bank of America. Can you believe approximately 1 million people were reached through the ATM process, receiving the messages? And through the Respectfully campaign, 22 million media impressions and approximately 1 million completed views. So we know that social media works. The interactions through the ATMs, a subtle message, but connecting people to support and resource was really impactful. I also just want to say how important it is that JDI, your members, all of us working together, strength in numbers, collaboration and partnership works, and that we really work together all through this past year. But when you think about the challenges of this pandemic and the people who we are trying to serve, victims and survivors, who find themselves at home in isolation, near abusers, in very, very difficult positions, facing trauma in their day-to-day life without an ability to escape from that, except the ability to access information and know that there are resources available. So I want to thank JDI for being an integral part of how we've been able to still connect to victims and survivors throughout the Commonwealth. I really believe that the hotline service has been really effective in terms of linking people to the 24/7 information. I want to thank DPH, HHS, Health and Human Services, for streamlining the SafeLink process. The statewide 24/7 confidential domestic violence hotline, expanding its capacity to triage calls to local rape crisis centers. Big shout out to Casa Myrna for all of your efforts. Making this SafeLink number available, 877-785-2020, and the deaf and hard of hearing individuals being able to access information as well. I also want to talk about the partnership that we have with the places that people have been going to get their needed groceries or going to the pharmacy for necessities, and working with the Mass Food Association, Mass Medical, the Mass Convenience Store Association, the Attorney General's Office, the Treasurer's Office, MOVA, MACA, the District Attorney's Office, and many others. Creating a poster, creating a message, document literally, to be displayed in these places so that if I'm out getting my groceries, the one time I can get away from maybe an abusive situation and see this message, then it reinforces that this is a place I can go, I can get help, I can get services, and it will link this person to a place where they can get support. So that is a really great display of the collaboration, the information that you received and said, we've got to solve this, we can do more. And that's what I love about all of you. You were part of that safety net that really stretches across our Commonwealth, and we have worked really hard over the course of our years and months together to make that safety net as strong as possible, and stretching it even stronger during this time of pandemic to think about ways to support victims and survivors, to make sure that we're doing everything we can so that they don't fall through the gaps and find themselves in harm's way. So just thank you. It's an honor to be with you this morning on behalf of our team, to Team JDI. It's a real honor to work with you. Thank you for this special recognition, and know that we're with you and working in collaboration and partnership. We'll continue to do a lot of great work to help victims, survivors, and to help our youth I want to see that Respectfully campaign make a comeback when our kids are back in school and able to get back to the things that they enjoy doing so much and that we treasure more than ever. Be safe, be well, and thank you.
Hi, everybody. Really want to thank the Lieutenant Governor and her entire team for helping us put that together. I need to let you know that they waited until Friday night at 6 o'clock to make the decision about whether or not she could be here this morning, because it was really a priority, and they wanted to hold on to the last possible minute to see if they could make it work. And she's very disappointed, as are we, but I hope that her, and I know, because I can feel it, and I even watched this video before, that the passion comes through, in her remarks, and that I know we'd right now all be cheering together in a room to know what it means, to think about what it means to have somebody in, almost the highest, position in the state, right? To have taken up this cause and been such a great advocate for us. And so we really appreciate that so much. My job as, so I'm Tony Troop, she, her pronouns, the Director of Communications and Development at Jane Doe, and cannot be more thrilled to see that we're now at 124, just peek us off of what's important. And for those who are here, you give us hope, you give us faith that people understand and appreciate the work that we do and the unique role that Jane Doe plays in this ecosystem around human rights and ending gender-based violence. So my job is to, first of all, thank again everybody for being here, and to pick up on what Peter said earlier, which is really to invite each of you to think about how you might give. Many of you have already given a gift today. Some of you have not. We'd invite you to do so. Those who have, we'd ask you to think about stretching a little bit more. The fundraising that we do during this breakfast, for those who know nonprofit parlance, gives us the unrestricted funds we need to step in when there is an emergency, when there's something we didn't expect it, to pay for those things that government won't pay for us to do. And understandably so, right? A lot of our advocacy work, for instance, up at the State House and down in Washington, is work that we need to pay for, privately. And we can't do that without your generous support. A few years back, our young philanthropists, we had a young member of our board who looked around and thought, Jessica, I don't see a lot of people like you on our board. Wait, I have to do something. And in terms of in our funding base and people who are supporting Jane Doe, knowing that they, like her, really cared about these issues. So she set out to put together a team and created this group called the Young Philanthropist Giving Impact, and recruited 10 other people under 40 who pledged $50 a month to support Jane Doe. That's a $600 gift a year. They like to tell me that that was one less martini a week, or fancy cocktail drink. So it was, on the one hand, a sacrifice, but something that they were willing to give for a higher cause. And after about a year and a half of raising almost $10,000 for Jane Doe, they looked at the rest of us and said, what are you doing? The non-young philanthropists, as we like to call ourselves. And we're like, right, what are we doing? So we set out and we created the Grand Circle of Giving. The Grand Circle of Giving is an opportunity for people of whatever age to give a monthly donation. So whether you give it $50 a month, which would be, again, a $600 annual gift, or we figured out if you gave $83.33 a month, that's $1,000 a year. Some of our not young philanthropists, Grand Circle members, like to think of that as one less fancy meal a month. So, there's many ways to slice this. What it all comes down to is that it's the unrestricted funds that are helping us through, help us through these times. We currently have about, I think there's maybe 30 members of the Grand Circle of Giving. Our goal by the end of 2020 is to have 50 people set up. I would be thrilled if, coming out of today, even 10 of you joined in right now. It would make the world of difference to us. That sustaining gift every month is something we can count on. And we know we can count on you We know you show up for events like this. You show up throughout the year when we need to advocate up at the State House or down in Washington. You show up when we need to make noise about an issue, whether it's a march or a rally or whatever is happening, to show up at events. And we need you to show up financially. So we hope you'll take a moment. There's links in the chat box right now that tell you where you can sign in. Please consider joining the Grand Circle of Giving. You really can make the difference. Thank you all so very much. It's now my, I can't even think of the right adjective, pleasure, extreme pleasure, to introduce Callie Crossley. Last year, Callie was one of our 2 awardees at the Spring Into Action event. And we are just delighted that when we thought about putting together a roundtable today, we thought for about a half a second about who we should ask to step in. Somebody who not only has already shown her chops as in many ways, in so many ways, as a journalist and as a commentator, but as somebody who has a real distinct voice in the movement, and I wouldn't, maybe you wouldn't call it a movement, I'd call it a movement around civil rights, around human rights, and brings that into everything that she does in her work life. And we're just so pleased that she agreed to be here today to join us again at this year's Spring Into Action. Callie.
Thanks, Tony. Thanks, Deborah. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Good morning. Tony asked me before I introduced our honorees into this discussion to sort of reflect on this year and the theme, the honorees in general. And the first thing that came to mind when I read and understood about the Respectfully campaign was 2009. Now, some of you probably just got, I don't even know if you were born then, but but because you're so young. But way back in 2009, something really interesting happened. Chris Brown, a singer some of you may know, punched Rihanna, who is another singer. She's long left him in the dust, I believe, but whatever. He hit her repeatedly in the face. He choked her and threatened to kill her. The news went everywhere because they both were pop culture stars. But what was interesting to me was that there was a lot of follow-up, and one of the most important ones was in Boston. There was a survey taken among young people aged 12 to 19, 200 Boston youths at the time. And this is what it revealed. 51% said Chris Brown was responsible for the incident, 46% said Rihanna was responsible, and 52% said both were to blame. 52% said the media was treating Brown unfairly. 44% said fighting was a normal part of a relationship. And a significant number said Rihanna was destroying Chris Brown's career. And women blamed Rihanna as much as men did. So if there was ever evidence of some strong messaging about what a healthy relationship is all about, that's the history. Now, that was 11 years ago. We should note that Respectfully is the first campaign in 20 years that's been state funded and promoted. And that's an important thing because that wasn't that long ago that these young people were walking around with these ideas about what they thought a relationship should be, and maybe because they were celebrities, but I don't think so. This is really what they came away with. It was shocking to all of us in town. It was scary. And so now here we are, fast forward, and have a really integrated, cooperative, collaborative campaign that is saying just the opposite. And we've seen evidence that that has worked quite well, hence the honorees today. So those are my personal thoughts, and I'm now going to introduce the honorees. If you haven't paid attention to who they are, the triumvirate of all of them this year are great folks. So Kelly Dwyer is the Executive Director of the Governor's Council on Sexual Assault and Domestic Violence. Kelly's had that role since 2018. And by the way, we should note that the council itself was came back together as an order from Governor Baker in 2015. So a lot of the work that is being done is, relatively recent in this arena. Anyway, Kelly, of course, has worked very closely with Lieutenant Governor Karyn Polito. Just a note in this moment that I don't think if anybody's been watching those daily COVID-19 briefings, Lieutenant Governor Polito has made it quite clear the importance of domestic abuse issues. She's brought it up. She's given places where people can reach out. She's made a lot of people aware, I think, in this time why it was important. So I just want to mention that. So congratulations in that way. Judy Haber is president and principal of More Advertising. Maybe this is the kind of work she'd be doing anyway, because she's a former social worker dedicated to social justice, but in her current job, she also keeps that budget in line at More Advertising. She worked with Julia Gould, who's a digital strategist in residence, and Julia's in charge of all things social media for the company, the Facebook, the Twitter, the Instagram, the TikTok, and as we'll hear, a lot of what they did with the videos was on social media, and that was extremely important, not only to this audience, but as a way of getting out the information. Jill Calabrese Bain is the Managing Director of Enterprise Payments for Bank of America, but she's also co-chair of the Domestic Violence Task Force for Bank of America. And that was important as they worked collaboratively with the other two groups of folks to get this message out in maybe beyond the usual places you might have thought it would have gone. So let's just start a conversation with all of them so we can just hear a little bit more about how the program came together, how the campaign came together, and what it took really to make it happen. 4 months, started in May of last year, went through October. Kelly Dwyer, the target was ages of 12 to 18. I just tell you about this survey between kids of 12 to 19 who obviously had the misinformation about what a healthy relationship was all about. Well, since this was the first campaign of this kind targeted to young people in 20 years, what was it that was the impetus to specifically target young people?
Thank you. And just, I apologize in advance if there's a little bit of background noise. I have two small children that decided to just wake up as I'm about to speak. So we actually, prior to me starting as the executive director, I know that the lieutenant governor as well as Secretary Sutters had testified on a panel back in October of 2017 at the Joint Committee on Public Health hearing, discussing issues related to public health and sexual assault as well as domestic violence. And a major theme that came up during that was the importance of prevention and public awareness. When I joined in 2018, we actually went out and did community roundtables. We called it the community impact discussion with many of you that are involved in programs or partnering with programs to discuss primary prevention and what that exactly looks like. And so to your point, Callie, about talking with young people, is that the younger that we can get the messages across about what's healthy and what's unhealthy in all aspects of relationships, the better off we'll be in getting towards true primary prevention. So the hope with this public awareness campaign is that it would start these conversations in unusual places that we don't necessarily see it happening. And then also working with the experts in the field, is those that do end up disclosing about being involved in unhealthy relationships, that they can access services immediately and hopefully be able to thrive later in life and get the help that they need to get out of the situation that they're involved in.
So Kelly, when you came to the council, you'd had a career of working in domestic violence and sexual assault programs. I'm wondering if through that time you had just seen stuff bubble up in this age group, which needed to be addressed, and maybe there wasn't a direct way to do it.
Yeah, I've been involved in the sexual assault and domestic violence field for a little over 10 years now, probably coming up to 11 years. And I've actually done this work both in the military. I served 9 years in the Army National Guard, as well as working in Florida, working with high lethality victims, so attempted murders and things of that nature. And so a lot of what I've seen in my career is that although services, definitely we have a lot more work to do in supporting those that are supporting survivors. We typically don't see a lot of support when it comes to doing the work in primary prevention. And it's really difficult for sexual assault and domestic violence programs to be able to manage both the direct services as well as trying to do a lot of the primary prevention work. Typically it's underfunded and they're stretched incredibly thin. When I worked at Health and Heritage, we had one staff person that was dedicated, I think, a quarter of her actual time to be able to get into a number of schools throughout Plymouth County to work on primary prevention efforts, which is really difficult. So, you know, with the Lieutenant Governor and how incredibly passionate she is on building those safety nets, part of that is primary prevention. And it's showing, you know, within the administration and dedicating the state dollars, both with the public awareness campaign, but the Healthy Relationships Grant, to be able to support those that, you know, are doing this incredible work and just kind of piecemealing it together independently.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Judy, so it's one thing to have the idea, and it's quite another thing to pull the concept together. And on top of that, pull a concept together that's targeted at a specific audience, a young audience. And it's a young audience that's already getting all kinds of messages because they're besieged by media of all kinds. How did you guys begin to put this together?
Thank you, Callie. It was a wonderful task, and we had some experts in the field helping us out. But the first thing that we did, as we always do with campaigns of this nature, is that we go out and we talk to the target audience. We do a lot of formative research, and this campaign was no different. And it was even more important because obviously you look at us, we're not the target audience, right? We're not 12 to 18-year-olds. And I kept saying to everybody involved, we have to listen to the youth. We have to hear their voices. We have to find out what they want. And we needed to make sure that the messages that we developed were timely, they were informed by youth, they were relatable, actionable, and we gave them opportunities to find resources where they could determine for themselves, you know, in a media that they use, resources that they need to define what's healthy and unhealthy. And so we started out by speaking to stakeholders, and those stakeholders are lots of people in this room, people who know the subject matter, but then we went out to all corners of the state. And Kelly will attest to this because she went to a lot of these focus groups that we held with in Worcester and in Springfield and in Greenfield and all, you know, literally from every corner of the state, and spoke to middle school students. We spoke to high school students. And what we learned from them is that they were very specific about, they wanted short videos, they wanted they wanted animated characters, they wanted to see themselves in these ads. They were very clear that that all of our characters that we developed needed to reflect who they were. And Jessica spoke to this in her comments just a few minutes ago. So that's how we started. It's no different when we develop any public awareness campaign, but it was even more important for this one because of who we were talking to, our youth.
Okay. Julia, I don't see you on my screen, but I know you're here somewhere. So I'm going to throw a question out to you, which is that, what were some of the common themes that you heard as you were traveling about in conversation with these young people? What kept coming up to the surface that definitely had to be a part of the messaging?
Yeah, absolutely. So some common things that we heard that kept coming up were that the teens, they, you know, may be young, but they're dealing with the real problems, and we need to be very strategic and thoughtful in how we represent these issues that we're trying to show them how to resolve in a healthy manner. We heard, a lot from the females that we spoke to that a lot of their drama actually comes from friendships. And it wasn't until we got, which makes sense, to the older high school students where the drama really comes from relationships. We heard that we have to be on social media, which should be no surprise to anyone, but a little bit more thoughtful about where we are on social media. So, we know Facebook's on the way out, TikTok's on the way in. So we need to make sure that any media plan that we put together, is at where these teens are. And, we heard a lot about what they hope what they wish they had, the resources that would help them navigate these relationships. How, to not only show them what's good in relationships, but to show them what's bad, and then how do they get out of that situation if they find themselves in it. So, we heard a lot from, I think, close to 100 teens in person, and then we did an online survey where we spoke to almost 200 teens throughout the state. So, we always make sure to include, their voices and thoughts throughout the entire process.
Julie, I think some people might be surprised to know that, let me pick up something you said, that you really tackled two different kinds of relationships, the romantic, or potentially romantic, but also the platonic relationships. And as I'm looking at the work that you all did and some of the videos, I mean, it's easy for me to see how in some of the platonic relationships could be escalated. In other words, if you don't address some of the issues there. So I see why you did both. And of course, the teens asked for that. But I was a little surprised actually when I saw that. I thought it was going to be one kind of focus, and you actually expanded it. Tell me why.
That was done purposefully. We wanted to make sure that with this campaign, we develop messaging that not only resonates with older teens who are dealing with romantic relationships, but also younger teens who are really forming what they view are healthy relationships at that age. It starts with your friendships. That's how you learn how to interact and engage and maintain, any type of relationship. So yeah, it was definitely done purposely to make sure that we have some that focus on friendships and how you can navigate those relationships, and then making sure that we have something that's a little bit more mature for those older teens.
Okay. So Jill, Bank of America, you have, as representing the bank on the Task Force for Domestic Violence, you all have been involved before with JDI on the White Ribbon campaign. What was it about this Respectfully campaign that seemed to resonate with where your task force was going, or just some of the values that you're holding up on the task force?
Thanks, Callie, and good morning. And, just a giant thank you to JDI, to Deborah, to Tony, to Peter, everyone who's helped sponsoring this program for the work you do every day, but today, especially in the environment that we're in. So I want you to know that we all appreciate everything that you're doing. So a big shout out. For Bank of America, we've been at it since about 2013, Callie, where we established our Domestic Violence Task Force. My co-chair, Bess Evans, is actually on the phone with us as well this morning. And it was really about creating awareness around a topic no one wanted to talk about. And, we're a company of 210,000 strong. And so what's happening in society is happening within Bank of America. And when the Respectfully campaign came to our attention last year, we thought, okay, this is a phenomenal way to actually create awareness and transparency around a very significant issue that is not being discussed. And certainly, if you're a parent or a guardian of adolescents, you know that they're not talking a lot. And what we thought was really unique was this social media approach that Julia just talked about. But then how could Bank of America actually promote and amplify the message across the Commonwealth, which is what got us really excited, because we know that 12, 13, 14-year-olds aren't showing up in an ATM, but we do know that their parents or guardians are. And we want that conversation to be happening on both sides. How do you talk to your kids more effectively about this issue? So we had more than 1,000 ATMs across the Commonwealth, and we promoted the Respectfully campaign and the message such that we could get millions of views on the campaign. So that got us really excited. It's an opportunity to ensure that the work that we're doing internally, we can now take externally. And so we were really excited about the leadership, Kelly, and all the work that the teams did, and the Lieutenant Governor. That's exemplary leadership, and we were excited to jump on board.
How actually did your collaboration work together? I mean, did you come in well after Moore had sort of designed it all, and Kelly and the Lieutenant Governor had sort of narrowed down what the tenets of the campaign that they wanted to focus on?
Yeah.
How did that come together?
That's right, Callie. And so Deborah came to us with this idea and said, hey, we're working with the Lieutenant Governor's office and more advertising on this really unique campaign. And we said, okay, let's hear about it. What do you all do, and what would you like to accomplish? And you know, this is the way that we like to collaborate in the community, and that it's not the first time that we were able to collaborate. You mentioned the White Ribbon campaign as well. And so we're always open to opportunities and suggestions, and, you know, how is it that we can help support the community and be a better corporate citizen around what's happening, and do it in new, you know, innovative ways, which I think this campaign is really innovative. And I love what Jessica was saying earlier, and you know, how eloquent and articulate you were about, you know, helping us to become better informed. And that's what this is about. So
a few years ago, you co-chaired the Spring Into Action event. And at that time, you talked about, you know, the seriousness of corporate responsibility and citizenship. And what's your message to other corporate entities that might be a little squeamish about tackling, as you said, it's not a very pretty topic, but it's one that needs to be addressed?
Yeah, you know, it was, you know, years ago, it was like breast cancer. No one wanted to talk about breast cancer publicly. And certainly with this topic, no one was really jumping to talk about it. And you know, when we started as a company internally to say, hey, we've got to make sure that we create the resources for our employees such that they feel safe and supported. And so we have a team within Bank of America that is a domestic violence abuse team that actually helps our employees. And when we started to talk about this, others outside the company said, ooh, does Bank of America have a problem? Like, it was a big headline. And, you know, our response was, so what if we do? You know, we all need to address this together. And so we're going to start talking about this. And so, you know, it's really a testament to our leadership, Brian Moynihan, our CEO, Sherry Bronstein, who's the head of our Human Resources Department, that we not only started talking about it, but we put a whole program around it, and we put some resources around it. And what happened next was that other companies started to call us to say, hey, can you talk a little bit about what it is that you're doing? We'd like to know what it is that you're doing. So we talk to other companies such that we can learn from each other. But I think, you know, we've all got a role to play, and you know, we're playing a very small part, but it's one that we believe is important.
Okay. Kelly Dwyer, you heard the Lieutenant Governor say she'd love to see this campaign come back in the fall. Is there any possibility of that?
Yep. So we do have it in the fiscal year 2021 budget, but also as well, because of the pandemic, we were planning on doing a spring event to do a little bit more of an active engagement with youth outside of the social media outlets. And unfortunately, because there are no gatherings at this time, we decided to put that on hold. And we're very hopeful for the fall. And Julia and Judy at Moore have just been tremendous in kind of rolling with the changes. And we're working on something for hopefully the fall timeframe.
Is there any particular story that you can think of, Kelly Dwyer, in the putting together of this campaign and the listening to all the people and the teens that you listen to that, you know, just stands out from you about why something like Respectfully is very important?
So I wouldn't necessarily say that there's any particular story that stands out. I would say that, you know, in the essence of being able to hear the rawness from the youth group and from those that have contributed to the surveys, as well as some of the listening sessions that we've done. You know, I remember when I was young, I was extremely quiet. So the fact that they're just being open and honest in sharing, you know, their own personal experiences in both friendships and relationships with complete strangers, I think is incredible. And it also, shows that there's been a turn in the tide, and although there's a ton of work that still needs to be done, that these conversations are a lot more comfortable to have. And so they're able to really kind of direct us and let us know where we were going in areas that didn't necessarily resonate with them. In their just honesty and rawness, it's been incredible to listen to, for sure.
Oh, great. I'm getting the hook, but I know Judy and Julia, you all have a new video that you're going to premiere soon. I don't know if you're doing it today, but I just know that that's next steps for more in its collaboration on the Respectfully campaign.
Yes, Callie, that's right. We again heard from our youth advisors because we meet with them regularly to check in, that they wanted to see sequels to the original 6 videos that we did, that they wanted to hear more about what happened in the background, what the 2 youth were thinking, and how did it resolve itself, and why did it resolve so quickly. So we have put together at the moment 2 completed sequels, and this time around we actually used 2 of our youth advisors from this year's advisory group to actually do the VO for us, the voiceovers. So which was great. They came to the studio, they recorded the videos. It was fantastic. And Julia, I don't know if you want to say anything more about what's coming up, but Kelly's right. We had to pivot during the pandemic, and we've got some ideas that if we can't all get together in large gatherings, we're going to do some virtual gatherings. So just like we're doing here today, we're going to work with the youth like that. So Julia, I don't know if you wanted to say some final words about that.
Yeah, I think the only thing I would add is we're really, following the youth group's lead as we plan for the next few months, trying to figure out where they're at currently, what resources can we provide to them that will get them through this very strange few months that we're in, and then how can we pick things up when things get back to our new normal in the fall. So it's been great to continue to be able to reach out to them and hear from them and include them in the campaign.
All right, well, congratulations to all of you awardees. Justice in Action takes action, so congratulations to you. And I'm going to now turn the program back over to Deborah.
Wow, I'm going to ask everyone to unmute yourselves. Can you do that so we can have a round of applause for our awardees?
Terrific job.
Okay. I don't know if you can show and tell.
Yeah.
Really grateful for the partnership we're creating. As we end this morning, I want to congratulate you. Now I'll ask you all to mute yourselves again. To showing up this morning and being with us and enjoying a little of the spirit that we hope to emanate, a little bit of hope for the future. We all need really a lot right now. I just want to echo Tony's pitch that he gave earlier, rely on private funds to support our advocacy work, and most of our funding. Get out of here. So we really appreciate all of you who contribute to the Grand Circle of Giving, to the Young Philanthropists, and your other ways that you support us. And this is our only fundraiser that we have every year. And it's exciting that we are surpassing the 6 figures that we want to, but we also really, really need those private funds to enable us to continue our mission, which feels challenging and yet.
Money not gonna hurt. No way.
Without further warning, but if folks wanna, somehow I just got muted. Am I muted? No. I want to invite, as you decide to leave us this morning, some of us are just going to stay on in case you want to mingle. This is our way of mingling right now. But as you go through your day, I hope you'll feel hopeful about prevention and think about the, inroads we're making. The partnerships, we always say it really comes down to the relationships. And this is in this time that is more evident than ever before. And we invite you to connect with us, work with us, can support your local domestic violence program, your local rape crisis center. They also need you just to know that you're in their community. They're in your community. And we look forward to continued partnerships with all of you. Thank you from the depth, on behalf of the JDI team and our board, I just thank you from the depths of our being that you were with us today. Thank you very much. Be safe, everyone.